Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. Dada, with a double dose of ultimate previews from your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, a rare Wednesday episode for your earholes as we provide you with ultimate previews not only for the 2026 edition of NXT Heatwave, but for the first ever edition of AAA Ola de Calor. We will break down every single match, every single development from NXT and AAA before this show is out. Of course, both of those programs happening Sunday beginning at noon Eastern in Texas. But before we get to that, we need to get to all of this. And that, of course, first is a reminder that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating. On Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Also, do not forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. On YouTube, you can listen to the show. You can watch full-length video interviews. Hit the link in our social media profiles. You can join our free Slack channel, converse with the Silver King, Vintage Chris Vanini, our other Getting Overheads about wrestling all week long. You can subscribe to the show and so much more. Make sure you find us on social media at Getting Overcast. As mentioned on Tuesday, this is going to be a 5-episode week here at Getting Over. We already have your complete, detailed WWE breakdown in the feed, waiting for your earholes. Make sure you don't miss that episode. Of course, today we're breaking down NXT and AAA, giving you ultimate previews for Heatwave and Ola de Calor. On Thursday, we will be back with your 2026 AEW All in London ultimate preview. And then on Sunday, while Silver King does not know the order of operations yet, we will have 2 instant analysis episodes, one for AEW, another for NXT and AAA. So there is going to be a ton of performance-enhancing audio making its way into your earholes from over a 6-day span. And I just want to make sure none of you miss any of it. So make sure, if this is your first time listening, you subscribe to the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. With all that said, we're going to kick things off with AAA. Then we're going to move over to NXT. That's really just going to be the order of the shows this coming Sunday. There are timestamps in the episode description. So if you really don't watch AAA and you just want to hear the Silver King get right to NXT, you can skip over. As always, though, I hope you listen to the entire show. And just to give you a little bit more context on how we're going to break this down, we're going to provide TV results from AAA, then an ultimate preview for AAA Ola de Calor, and then the same thing for NXT, some straggling, TV segments first, and then your ultimate preview for NXT Heatwave. But as I said, we are starting with AAA. Penta fought Broco Nima. This was basically a proving ground match for Nima, who Penta called dead weight, while Penta would be forced into joining Los Perros del Mal if he loses. Nima attacked Penta on the ramp and was relatively rough on execution in what for me was the biggest match of his entire career by far. Penta ultimately won with an inside cradle in a surprisingly short match for a main event, giving him a free option to join rather than be forced into the faction. Still, Perros del Mal ran down with a chair and chased him out of the ring, but the chair was not for Penta. Rather, it was for Nima, who was excommunicated from the faction with an attack and another Street Fighter-style petrifier from Carmen, which is what her finisher is being called. She also put her knee on his face and kind of squatted over his head, which,
it should have been me. It should have been me.
Perros del Mal allowed Penta into the ring, and when he grabbed the shirt, he got super hype, looking like he was going to join, only to hand it over and get attacked anyway. Rey Fenix saved, but similarly got taken down 3-on-1, so Dragon Lee finally ran out to even the sides, combining with the Lucha Brothers to clear the ring. Penta called them his real family and challenged to a trios match at Ola de Calor. Even though the expectations were low for Bronco, he disappointed here. I do enjoy when heel factions have short-term inaugural members because it shows their lack of patience and their win-at-any-cost nature. But at the same time, Perros del Mal are visually lesser without their heavy. Speaking for myself, they are not substantial enough as a 4-person group, considering Petrovic has not done much of anything. She's not even competing in the women's division there as of right now. So they absolutely need to add another member, ideally a heavy. And my choice would be Damian Priest. That would rock some shit. It would be a major shot in the arm for Priest as a character. One that could even hopefully, though let's be honest, probably not, translate to the main roster. The match booking is massive, as it's the first time the Lucha Brothers are teaming in 2 years. We'll hit that more a little bit in the Ultimate preview, but I did want to circle back briefly to Bronco, because you heard me say this on Tuesday's show when OTM got called up to the main roster alongside Royce Keys. Like, this is why I was so floored. We came out of NXT last week and Lucian Price disappointed immensely in his singles match. Then we go into the AAA show on Saturday and Bronco did not flash at all. And yet they got called up to the main roster. And it's just like, I understand they're a visual fit with Keys. It makes sense, but they just don't seem ready for it. They're going to have to learn how to be higher level professional wrestlers live on television, working for the biggest company in the world, as opposed to on the developmental brand. And it's a questionable decision as far as the Silver King is concerned. Let's move to Galeno against Omos. This was a shocking booking for two reasons. First, they were scheduled to have a match against Priest as a Latin American Championship qualifier, yet this was one-on-one. Second, given the massive amount of meat involved, it seemed obvious that this was going to get built up and run at a bigger show. Instead, it was randomly on this taped broadcast. No explanation at all was provided by commentary. Now, all of that said,
Oh, we got two big meaty men bumping me tonight. No bread, no water, just me. Big meaty men slapping meat. That's what I want.
and that is indeed what we got here. Omos dominated at the bell until Galeno got creative, received loud chants for his efforts, hit a frog splash into the center of the ring. After Omos retaliated, Galeno drilled him twice with the top of the steel steps, but didn't knock him off his feet. Omos retaliated with 2 step shots himself to the back, and that led the referee to call for the bell, I presume a no contest. Unfortunately, it fell apart after that. Omos slammed Galeno into the announce table. It only half broke, so he tried again, but it collapsed before he could execute a chokeslam. Omos ultimately tried to throw the steel steps out of the ring into Galeno's body ringside, but Rey Mysterio stopped him. Omos went to like a one-arm chokeslam, grabbed him, lifted him all the way in the air over his head, but Dorian Roldan pleaded for him to stop, and then Dominic ran into the ring and begged him to actually execute it. Omos ultimately released, but when Rey suspended him indefinitely, Omos punched Rey. This was great, albeit imperfect. The match was just a taste of what Galeno and Omos can do together, and they threaded the needle perfectly to gain more support for Galeno and add heat for Omos. Luckily, it was not settled, so they can go back to it in a bigger spot. I still hope that happens at Triple Mania, though who knows what's happening with this Latin American qualifier. That's the way I was thinking when this ended. We got a fair representation of what we ultimately wanted from this match.
There's a lot of beef out here.
I need some meat. Yeah.
And I will give them 4 slabs of beef for it, but this really should be a 5 slabs of beef ceiling feud. And again, I hope we get another chance at it. It's unfortunate the announce table spot got messed up, because a crash landing would have been the perfect exclamation point on the segment. Perhaps the best part, though, was the Angel and Devil on Omos' shoulders as he had Rey like 9 feet in the air, Dominic wanting carnage for personal reasons, Dorian trying to protect his client for business reasons. The suspension creates a huge question mark. Perhaps the idea is to clear the deck for Triple Mania, though it's more sensible to reinstate him sooner, because as of now, Dominic has gained nothing from joining El Ojo a few weeks ago. If the only other wrestler in the faction, the big guy, Omos, the heavy, is now suspended and not on television. So why did you put him in that faction? We'll, of course, have to find out. Mysterio later announced that Galeno will not be medically cleared for at least a few weeks. And regarding the Latin American Championship 4-way, he just inserted Priest into the match and announced it's going to be held Saturday. It feels like a decision was made to avoid having Galeno or Omos take the fall, though Galeno almost certainly would have been fine if a former world champion defeated him. I'm disappointed we did not get the triple threat, but with Omos suspended and Galeno kayfabe injured, that does potentially set up the exact big meaty match we want at Triple Mania. So if they do get there, ultimately, that will be good.
I think you may have something here.
Mysterio earlier got visited by Flammer, who decided she would take Triple Mania off, considering she's been champion for over 1,000 days and there's no challengers left. Ray instead decided to create a gauntlet match to crown a number one contender for the show, and she accepted. Then he held back La Hiedra for a conversation, but the segment ended early. I presumed he held her back to create a mixed tag team match. But now that I'm thinking about it, maybe she's going to join the gauntlet and possibly wind up challenging her stable partner. So that could be interesting. Los Americanos, LWO, Psycho Circus, and Money Machine fought in a number one contendership tag team match. Unfortunately, the inferior two legal men rule was applied here. Americanos at times operated as more authentic luchadors than some of the other guys involved. Bravo climbed four dudes' backs for a staircase tope con hero into Murder Clown ringside. Murder answered with a double Samoan drop on Americanos before hitting a crossbody into three dudes ringside. For context, Murder's about 310 pounds. He missed a subsequent flying headbutt, so Bravo deadlifted him for a helicopter spin, with Rayo landing a flying headbutt for a broken fall. Joaquin Wilde hit a springboard cannonball or seated senton before Cruz del Toro landed a springboard corkscrew plancha outside and Phoenix splash inside for another broken fall. Rayo ultimately eliminated LWO by forcing friendly fire before combining with Bravo for some really weird tandem finisher to get the dub. Far too talented for that to be how they end matches, but they were the right winners as the hottest and best team in the match. 4 stars A-, an absolute blast of a car wreck. And it was the featured bout on the show. It deserved to be. Money Machine remains seriously underrated. It is a joy whenever they are in these matches. That moves us into the AAA Ola de Calor Ultimate Preview. We're going to break down every match on the card. We'll give you some predictions along with additional storyline build that you may or may not need to know, but Silver King decided he wants you to have it. First, El Carnicero, the new horror villain, will debut in the ring. There was a vignette for Carnicero that had a Texas Chainsaw Massacre theme, apropos, given he will be debuting in the Lone Star State. The name translates to the Butcher. No opponent was announced, so we should assume a squash of some kind, though any member of Psycho Circus would have made sense if we are to assume that he was the one attacking them, which is a storyline thread that has not been resolved at this time. So I'll predict Carnicero beats whoever he fights because it's going to be his debut match. Tag team championships, the War Raiders defending against Los Americanos. Figured Los Americanos contendership would get saved until Triple Mania, but it's possible that AAA needs their decks cleared for the main event. Though since it's a 2-night show, perhaps this match could have happened on night 1 and then they would have been available to show up for night 2 if they were needed. You know, the Americanos are insanely hot. Like, the fans absolutely love them down in Mexico. The size differential of the War Raiders and the show that this match is being held on leads me to believe that we're most likely headed for a retention, not a title change. If this was on Triple Mania, the same exact match, I'd go with a title change because you want to make the fans happy and they'd be over the moon for Los Americanos winning. But in this circumstance, it just seems more likely the Raiders retain. Also, they haven't had that many defenses yet as champions. Let's move to the vacant Latin American Championship. El Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr., El Fiscal, La Parca, and Damian Priest all in contention for this title. So there's 2 parts to this, right? First, who just do you think should be champion? But then you need to remember that person will most likely be defending the title at Triple Mania because they're going to want to feature all their championships. As always, when we have a multi-person match, the process of elimination makes the most sense. I do not see La Parca winning this match. El Fiscal, he has that feud with Abismo Negro. I badly want to see Fiscal, Abismo in some major stipulation for the rights to the name, but also something hardcore for Triple Mania. That match makes too much sense to hold to have him enter that show as Latin American champion. So that brings us all the way down to Hijo de Dr. Wagner Jr. and Priest. And frankly, it doesn't matter who wins. I believe we're going to get that match one-on-one at Triple Mania. It just makes too much sense. For this show, in the United States, Texas specifically, I think you have Priest win the title. He is dissatisfied in kayfabe with what's happening on SmackDown, aligning with R-Truth. He came into AAA and in his promo specifically said, I am here to win championships. And if you're putting him in a situation like this, it makes sense for him to come out with a vacant title. He doesn't necessarily have to beat someone important to win that title. So he can beat La Parca, he can beat Fiscal, doesn't really matter. Priest can emerge as champion. And then what you do is you run Priest and Wagner at Triple Mania, and maybe you switch the title there. Granted, it's only a 3-4 week reign, which perhaps is why you do the opposite. Have Wagner win here and then Priest win at Triple Mania. But that's the move I would make, and I believe it's where they're leaning. Plus, headline-wise, Priest winning hits more than Wagner, especially on an All-In Sunday when WWE is trying to steal some of those headlines. That's why they booked these shows on that day. So I have Priest walking out as the Latin American champion, and I think it's going to be solid for him. His single promo in AAA when he showed up there a few weeks ago was pretty much better than any main roster promo he had ever cut because he was allowed to be himself, and I think he'll do well as champion. There's a number one contendership gauntlet for the women's championship. No one has been announced as competing in this match. We don't know how many participants. I believe maybe 6. Rey Mysterio said. I could be wrong about that. We're guessing perhaps La Hiedra will be in there. Almost certainly La Catalina will be involved. It does not seem like Lola Vice will be. She's making her debut on the main roster September 14th and pretty much already said her goodbye to AAA. Certainly what I would love is if we were surprised with Bayley, Roxanne Perez, Raquel Rodriguez. Like, a lot of them would make sense in this spot. Maybe Roxanne specifically, given her boyfriend is El Carnicero, who's making his debut. So you get both of them on the show. That would be pretty cool. Ultimately, the expectation going into Triple Mania has been that Flammer would face La Catalina for the title. And she would be the number one contender, and she would be anointed as this big-time babyface in the division by beating the long-reigning champion. But I look back at this, and I wonder, for Triple Mania, which is such a massive show, and Catalina's popular, don't get me wrong, if Bayley was open to it, wouldn't you just go with her? It protects Flammer in many ways. She doesn't lose the title, to a relative neophyte. I mean, Catalina's not a neophyte, but she's much younger and newer, whereas Bayley's a legend, right? It creates a lot of momentum behind that championship. Eyeballs on AAA. Bayley has said that she wants to wrestle in all these different promotions, and she has been great down in AAA. Of course, this all hangs on whether Bayley is going to stay with WWE long-term, and we don't know that. As of right now, I'm just saying, if you had the option, if she was staying, I would actually put Bayley over, and I'd have Catalina beat Bayley and then retain against Flammer rather than just have Catalina beat Flammer. But because we don't know anyone involved, and I don't believe Bayley will be part of it, and I would love Roxanne Perez to be in this match, win, and then beat Flammer, I just don't think that's going to happen. I'm going to predict that Catalina wins this gauntlet. It would be nice if I knew who the hell was competing in it, but the fact that it's going to be a surprise most likely is because there's going to be either some main roster superstars or NXT wrestlers that are part of that field. There's going to be a contract signing between Dominic Mysterio and El Grande Americano. No real prediction we can give you for that. Just, the other segments have been fantastic, and there's no reason for this one not to be. And for anyone who does not watch AAA Weekly, but will be tuning into Ola de Calor, you will see the way Dominic is presented in this brand compared to Monday Night Raw. The main event of the show almost certainly should be Penta, Rey Fenix, and Dragon Lee against Los Perros del Mal. The star power is why this will almost certainly be the final match and segment. It's going to be the first Lucha Brothers team up ever on WWE-related TV. They wrestled a dark match back in July. It's their first match as partners in 25 months, and it's happening just days ahead of their first televised singles match in 6 years. That is actually happening on Friday. It's being taped. So they're going to have that match on Friday against one another. And then 2 days later, team up live here on AAA. It's just crazy. This will also be Rey Fenix's 4th match in 7 days. He wrestled Monday night on Raw, Tuesday night on NXT. He's going to wrestle Penta on Friday, taped for Raw, and then he's going to wrestle on Sunday. He already has 2 4-star plus matches. One's an A, one's an A minus going in. So Phoenix may put together the best week for any wrestler this year by the time Sunday is over. I did feel like there was a huge missed opportunity Monday night on Raw not to integrate the dynamics of this team into the semifinals of the tournament, explain what's happening over in AAA and how these guys are going to be partnered together on Sunday, but then they're going to fight each other on Monday, how weird that might be for them as brothers. I really don't understand why WWE is not taking full advantage of these opportunities to promote AAA and ensure that there's continuity between the wrestlers, characters on the Mexican show and then the American show. It's just extremely odd for me. In terms of this match, look, the star power on the babyface side is immense. You could have Phoenix or Dragon take falls and neither of them would be hurt. But unless Perros del Mal adds another person, those three that still exist, Daga and Los Garza, they should not be beating this other trio. And it's also the main event. I think you want a big babyface moment. So I have the Lucha Brothers and Dragon Lee prevailing in this trio's main event. But there is that, hanging possibility that perhaps someone does join Perros del Mal, Priest. Perhaps Priest loses to Wagner in that Latin American, qualifier, or loses to, someone else, gets pinned, but he is not the victor in that match. He's upset. And he realizes, hey, in order to get the gold I want, I'm going to join Perros del Mal. So, I could see it. I could see someone else joining Perros del Mal as well. As I said earlier, they need more than just 3 male members. They need a heavy, especially. And I don't know exactly what they are going to be doing, but Penta, Phoenix, and Dragon, you send the fans home happy. It makes sense. They're the stars. And this is not Triple Mania where you need to worry about storyline so much. This is just a show in Texas that people are going to be attending and wanting to have a good time at. So I do have that trio winning. In terms of a pre-show expectation grade for Ola de Calor, this is what I'm going to say. These AAA episodes, you see what the card is, and many of them only have 2 matches, but you watch this 45-minute show without commercials, and you just are, how do I put this? The right word would probably be satisfied. You're super satisfied with the product that you watched. Here, there's the possibility on top of the satisfaction with the storytelling and, the way it's presented and all that, there's the potential for multiple great matches. So I have extremely high hopes for Ola de Calor. I'm actually going to come in with a pre-show expectation grade of, I'm going to say 93 A, the lowest A, but it might over deliver to that. We don't know who's involved in the women's gauntlet. That 4-way for the Latin American title could absolutely shock people. And the main event, we can finally truly see what Los Garza can do. And Daga's no slouch himself either, against the 3 best luchadors in the company right now, Penta, Phoenix, and Dragon. So, and then that's not even counting Los Americanos and War Raiders, a match I want to say we had a version of in NXT at one point. I'd have to go look, but both of those teams were incredible previously, and they're older now, sure, especially War Raiders, but they can still go. I don't know. This show, I think, is going to deliver and really exceed expectations, including my own. So when I'm at a 93A, I might even be underselling it slightly. It's not going to reach an A+ no matter what, but it might be a firm middle of the road A because these AAA shows have consistently delivered. Plenty more left on today's show. Before we get to it, allow Silver King to remind you here at the Getting Over Wrestling podcast,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well. For $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You will get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions whenever wrestling television shows deliver such a major storyline that we need to break in and not wait until our next podcast. You will also get exclusive news, analysis, editorial posts every week. Silver King accidentally missed last week. I thought I hit publish on the project I created. I realized on Tuesday I never did. So I'm going to kind of cut and trim some of that, add more from this week. You're going to get a fresh post before the Sunday shows this weekend. Please support us, get some additional content, allow us to keep the show on the air. buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Okay, let's move over to NXT. And as I said earlier, we're going to start with stuff that happened on TV. It may or may not directly relate to NXT Heatwave, but we need to discuss it first before we give you the ultimate preview, which we will do in its entirety. Picks, predictions, grades, all that. Coming up right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Zarya fought Callie Armstrong in a non-title match.
Oh, we got 2 big meaty men bumping me tonight.
Armstrong wore her best ring gear in months. Zarya dominated at the onset, but Callie went on a run into the break with the somewhat dangerous top rope dive ringside before her opponent was set. Got to be better at that, Callie. Armstrong landed a pickup powerbomb after the break, only to get flattened by Zarya, who countered her into a German suplex. Callie leapfrogged the spear, but when she tried Callie connection, Zarya speared her to hell. However, when she tried to finish Callie with an F5, Armstrong countered, rolling down into a 1-2-3 to win the match and advance into a triple threat at Heatwave. Strong match that was the best showcase of Callie in NXT since she officially joined the brand. Excellent finish that was executed well by two big but athletic women. Terrible booking. Okay, maybe not terrible, but pretty stupid, all things considered. There was no reason for Armstrong to be involved in a unification match between a pair of champions in the first place. And giving her the opportunity to beat both of them, Zarya and then Ren Sinclair last week, was absolutely ridiculous, especially considering at least one is going to lose the triple threat. If one or both was being called up to the main roster, okay, but that does not seem to be the case here. They don't need Zarya on the main roster right now, and they're not calling up Ren as much as I love her and think she should be on the main roster sooner than later. We'll come back to this more momentarily in the Ultimate Preview. The match was real solid, only 3 slabs of beef. I would love to see them rematch on a bigger stage, one-on-one, getting more time. AAA Cruiserweight Championship was on the line. Rey Fenix defending against EK Prosper. Fenix wore some eye-catching black gear with Mexican flag highlights. It was a main event level look. These guys were shot out of a cannon at the bell, and I got a phone call, so I was disappointed I missed the action during the break. Prosper had a beautiful moonsault ringside before the break and flying Rough Rider after, adding a spinning driver for a near fall. Fenix answered with Adios Amigo, a froggy crossbody, and a frog splash in succession. Prosper countered a cutter into a German suplex, only to eat a handspring cutter, leading to NXT and AAA chants. Then Prosper took Fenix down with a top rope springboard hurricanrana, but Fenix avoided the tuck moonsault, finishing with Mexican Muscle Buster to retain the title. He put over Prosper huge after the bell with a handshake and a dap up, and this was just excellent, man, especially considering it involved a neophyte in Prosper who continues to impress whenever he gets higher level opportunities. The kid is a quick study, and for Fenix, I'm going to go more about this in a second. It was his second match in as many nights, and he had to fly into Orlando, so he was traveling on top of wrestling twice in as many nights. Canada to Orlando, and then putting on a 4-star A- match here after putting on an A-level match against Dragon Lee on Raw. He is going to wrestle, I said this earlier, 4 matches this week. Raw, NXT, the Raw taping on Friday, and then Sunday at Ola de Calor. He's 2 for 2 on bangers, and each were A-level matches. He is 2 away from having that best week of any wrestler in 2026. It's super impressive work that he's doing. I thought the Cruiserweight Championship was initially given to Fenix just because, but it's great to see that there was a wider plan to feature his in-ring skill across multiple brands and move him into a more prominent position in WWE. This is the most important he has felt as a wrestler since 2024. And it's just great to see him having fun, putting on good work. You can see him smile during these matches, and you can tell it means a lot to him to be able to work at this level with people that are super talented. Saquon Sugars fought Dion Lennox in a weaponized steel cage match. This opened the show. Sugars put a trash can around Lennox, drilling him with a lid and a missile dropkick. Lennox answered with a turnover slam into upturned chairs, but Sugars answered that by running him throat first into a kendo stick and hitting a backbreaker into a swinging flatliner directly into an open chair. Lennox knocked Sugars off the ropes, with him hitting an open chair on the way down before taking a spinebuster into a trash can. Saquon found and used his bat, but got a steel chair thrown into and smashed onto his knee. Unfortunately, the finish was messy, and it was only partially due to the fault of the performers. First, Saquon mashed Dion's head into a trash can lid while they were on the ropes. The idea, he was going to slide down and do a sunset flip powerbomb off of his body through a table, possibly as the match finish. Instead, he slipped upon landing, and he smartly sold the knee, climbed underneath the table. So Lennox climbs down. He tries to land on the table, the idea being that, Saquon would do something off the top rope and beat him. But one of the legs of the table collapsed while he was on it, and it bent a little bit in the middle. So Sugars reset up the table, put him back on it, and put a trash can over his body. But as soon as he super kicked him and he laid back down on the table, it just snapped in half. So Saquon communicates to the referee that, hey, I'm going to improv. I'm going to the top. He climbs all the way to the top of this cage and hits a perfect flying crossbody. Seriously, a 10 out of 10 execution to get the win. There's an incredible match from TNA Lockdown that we're going to discuss, I believe, on Thursday's show, most likely before the AEW All In Ultimate Preview, where I think it was Jason Hotch is his name, did the same move off the top of a cage to Mustafa Ali ringside through a table. And it's not just that it was a flying crossbody off the top of the cage. It's the way in which it landed perfectly on the chest, flattening the person on the ground. As much impact as you could possibly deliver. They both did it. One over the weekend, I forget if it was Saturday or Sunday, and the other live on NXT TV as an improvisation. The slip and table stuff was super unfortunate, but Sugars was demonstrative in telling the referee, like, I'm going to finish the match this way. Tell your boy. Tell Dion. And the ref did a great job getting Lennox up in the right spot. That way he could take the move. It wound up being a more exciting and spectacular finish than was likely planned. And Saquon came off like an absolute demon rather than a guy who simply won a rivalry feud. There were some awesome planned sequences here, and Lennox held his own incredibly well, especially with those chair shots targeting Sugar's legs. This match deserves a lot of credit for being a strong feud ender, which was badly needed after the prior result. But the headline, Sugars is the truth. I've been saying it since he debuted. Now you have all seen it right in your face. It is time to move him into the mid-card title picture at worst. Strap the rocket to Saquon Sugars. He has it. 3.75 stars. B+. Keanu Carver fought Cam Hendricks. Carver again played bipolar when initially learning that he was getting this match, happy that it was made, angry that it was on short notice. Mason Rook watched this conversation with Robert Stone from afar in the latter stages. Carver caught Hendricks and landed a massive German suplex. He followed with a second German before a devastating pounce that led to Hendricks flying out of the ring. The referee, for some reason, stopped Carver from pursuing Hendricks ringside, which led to a rake of the eyes through the ropes. However, Rook ran in from the corner to crossbody Cam ringside, absolutely flattened this dude. And Carver, back inside, hit a freaking perfect plex, imperfect, but he still executed it to win. Let me just repeat that. Keanu Carver won a match with a perfect plex. Certainly did not expect that finish. The match was okay. As I've said before, Keanu works much better with smaller opponents, but also, as I've said before, his week-to-week improvement has been blatantly obvious of late. He's legitimately beginning to flash, and I'm glad to see whatever extra work he is putting in is clearly paying off. Stone backstage admonished Carver for cheating when he did nothing of the sort. Rook is responsible for his own actions. He wanted to do a rematch, but Carver refused, saying the referee's decision is final. Stone then dealt with Shiloh Hill's manic shit before agreeing to book a revenge match against Naraku next week. While Stone has largely been great in this general manager role, I don't know what's been happening, but he has been all over the place with decision-making over the last 2 weeks. Anyone with eyes would know Keanu had nothing to do with his match finish, did not deserve to be punished. Focus on Rook getting involved if you want to blame anybody. It was so weird. Also, like, Naraku is just still in NXT. Tony D'Angelo beating him 2-0 in both situations where it looked like he probably should have lost those matches. And now he's just fighting Shiloh Hill. Like, how long is this guy going to be in NXT? I didn't mind that he started there. He said he wanted to. It makes sense. I believe Io Sky lives in Orlando and they're married, so they probably share a home down there. He's getting adjusted to moving to the United States. It's great that he's in NXT. But why the hell is this guy not the champion? At this point, it's crazy. And now he's fighting Shiloh Hill, a neophyte. It's just very weird. Sean Legacy, Dorian Van Dukes, Noam Dar, and Romeo Moreno fought Birthright. This was as random as any AEW 8-man match that you get on television. 8 talented dudes fighting. They have been separated and they do dislike each other, but there was no reason for this specific match to happen. Moreno once again flashed. His springboard crossbody ringside was beautiful. DVD reminds me so much of when Buddy Murphy decided to work in 205 Live. The dude looks like a flippy Batista. He hit the move of the match, basically a blue thunderbomb over the ropes. Legacy landed a springboard 450 and running Spanish fly, plus an ejection springboard splash. Lexus King actually executed a really nice flying blockbuster, and Charlie Dempsey won with a fisherman's back suplex bridge on Dar. I'm just happy to see Dempsey A, wrestle, and then B, register a pinfall. He's been severely underutilized in NXT since the dissolution of NQCC. Hopefully this is the start of something. Super fun match, but exactly what I expected at the onset, mostly a B+ level spot fest. And that's fun and it's fine for TV, especially if you don't do it that often, which NXT does not. Let's go ahead and move over to the NXT Heatwave Ultimate Preview. There are 6 matches on this card, but this is going to be one of the most unique Ultimate Previews we've ever done because only the first match we're going to discuss will be covered on its own. The next 2 will be grouped together, and then the 3 primary matches on this card will also be grouped together based on the way the Go Home show operated. You'll understand when we get to it. First, we have Jada Parker against Natty in a submission match. Natty cut a promo on Jada, putting over all her strong attributes before explaining that she challenged her because she was wasting all of her potential and the tools in her bag. She got soft, comfortable, and exposed. Natty claimed Parker has stepped up since receiving her attention, taking credit for turning her possibilities into realities. Jada answered wearing see-through leggings that were so eye-catching. I am convinced that WWE left the bottom third graphic on screen extra long. That way they did not show her butt.
Gonna look good, but she's got me saying, hey now!
A deserved hey now for Jada Parker here. We will come back to this hey now championship contention next week on our WWE episode. Parker admitted that she did question herself while taking losses, but she sees through Natty. She might have the records and the legacy, but she challenged Jada to break her, not support her. She got the crowd to thank Natty for reminding her who Jada Parker is, saying Natty should be thanking her for getting her back in the spotlight. Natty was hyped seeing Jada show spark, challenging her to a submission match, and Parker closed strong, saying Natty may be the low-key legend, but she's going to high-key wax that ass. No idea where the hell this Jada came from, but this is the woman we have been missing on TV since she returned. Yes, I get that she's been playing a role recently, but Parker has not shown this kind of fire in a long time. This is the Jada Parker who you'll remember Silver King when she first debuted on NXT and started wrestling and cutting promos. I told you guys, I said, she has an opportunity to be the female Triple H in the long term. I see so many similarities between them at this young point in their careers, especially the way Jada is so much more effective as a heel than a babyface, even though she's been doing an incredible job as a babyface over the last couple of months, teaming with Thea Hale, going up against Natty and her crew. Natty struggled with her promo as usual. Jada captivated and built the match well, going home with her final few lines. The one miss was not hearkening back to their prior bout with the thrown-in towel. That was the specific reason this needed to be a stipulation match. It sounded like Natty came up with it out of nowhere, but there was precedent as to why they needed this stip, and they just completely glossed over it. They skipped the storytelling. Probably her fault more than Jada, who won that match despite the frustrating finish, but it was the glaring miss from this segment building to NXT Heatwave. But it's going to be Parker and Natty in a submission match, which you would believe Natty, of course, would have the upper hand, given she trained in the dungeon, she runs her own dungeon, and she uses the sharpshooter, whereas Jada historically has not really had a submission finisher. But she did have Natty close to tapping out in their prior match before the towel got thrown in, and I can't imagine them running this entire storyline only to have Natty beat Jada and then Jada just like go back to rock bottom. It wouldn't make any sense. This is the match where you put over Jada Parker and she is going to beat Natty, no question. I wouldn't be surprised if they were considering or were originally planning to run this as NXT Underground, which I actually think would have made it even better. But coming immediately after the Kendall Gray and Lola Vice Underground match, you just can't do it. That thing was so spectacular. Number one, you don't want to run the same stipulation so close anyway, but that match was so damn good that you don't want to run a weak facsimile a couple weeks later. It just really doesn't make sense. Jada Parker beats Natty. Now, the next 2 matches we are going to discuss together. Tag Team Championships, Miles Bourne and Tavian Heights defending against Vanity Project, and North American Championship, Miles Bourne defending against Jackson Drake, because Bourne right now is a 2-way champion. Vanity Project got a field trip interview segment where they were accompanied by cameras while bowling. This was an incredible outside the ring feature. They contrasted themselves as real friends compared to Bourne and Heights. Micah Lockwood showed up Drake, who only knocked down 3 pins. She smashed 7. Project explained how they've become brothers through the indies and evolved. They've adopted Micah as a brother, not a sister. Lockwood accidentally, let's say, C-blocked Brad Baylor while he was macking on a honey. And then Ricky Smoke set up one of those ramps children use to aim the ball right down the middle of the lane. He also had a massive styrofoam soda compared to alcoholic beverages for the rest of them. And perhaps he's a sober guy and that's cool, but it also like painted him as the kid of the group as well. So that was just pretty funny. So much personality here. Everyone was so natural together. Micah fit like a glove. I hate to keep making the comparison, but it was similar to how China did in the latter stages of Degeneration X. It was tough to exit the segment without a smile on your face because they all executed their parts so damn well, showing their distinct personalities within a group setting, and it makes me want them to have a Judgment Day clubhouse or a Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams barbershop type location where they can do more of this in the future. They were so endearing as a foursome, and frankly, them sucking at bowling, like not kayfabing a bunch of strikes, just dropping 3s, 6s, and 7s, it made it even better. So this was just outstanding. The faces tried to strategize backstage. Bourne and Heights. Heights was willing to do the heavy lifting in the tag team match, especially if it goes first. That way he can help protect Bourne's singles strap. Bourne told him they will do what is necessary to walk out with all the gold, no matter how it transpires. And Heights again expressed, I guess, that he is so happy to be a tag team champion. He has no idea what he would do if they lose them. So he's basically trying to tell us, I would be so mad if we lose. I might do anything, including turn on you, Miles. Hank and Tank got in their grills for a post-Heatwave challenge as other teams looked on behind them. It has been really heavy-handed with Heights, basically telling us he's going to turn heel on Bourne if they lose. But once again, I came out of this segment wanting nothing more than the faces to retain their titles because, as I've said before, they are so much better as a team than individuals. And their recent championship win has reinvigorated this division. But it's not just that they wrestle better as a team. Bourne is more personable working with Heights. Heights is more interesting when aligned with Bourne. And they fit each other so well as partners. I don't understand why you would immediately force them apart after you give them these titles unless you are so steadfast on Heights turning heel and then ultimately, winning the title and then Bourne challenging him for the title. Because if you do turn him heel, then the idea would be, you would think, that Drake is beating Bourne so that Vanity Project walk out of Heatwave all as champions. Either that or they run that singles match first and Bourne goes so balls to the wall that he barely escapes Drake, but he wears himself down entirely by doing it. And then by the time the tag team match rolls around, he's not able to contribute and help Heights. He's the one who gets pinned, Tavian, and Vanity Project win the tag team titles. So while my heart wants Bourne and Heights to retain the tag team titles, and I'd even be okay if Drake beat Bourne for the North American Championship and maybe Miles holds some resentment over Tavian where, because they did such a good job in the tag team match, Bourne was so tired that Drake had the opening to beat him much more easily, or maybe Heights doesn't help him in that singles match and Vanity outnumbers him because Heights got hurt in the tag team match. There's so many different things they can do here. But my heart, let me go back to that. My heart is Bourne and Heights retaining the tag team titles, Bourne losing the North American Championship, being okay with it, those guys existing as a tag team, and eventually, even potentially much sooner, getting moved up to the main roster as a duo. That's what my heart wants. What my head says is that Heights and Bourne are definitely losing the tag team titles to Vanity Project. And if that match goes first, then I have Bourne losing the North American Championship to Drake, Heights being part of the reason for that happening. If the North American title match goes first, then I would say Bourne retains over Drake, but they still lose the tag team titles. And that way Heights is angry that Bourne put so much into his match. He didn't have enough left for the tag team. He prioritized himself over his friend and so on and so forth. That is the way I see this going. Now, the final 3 matches are the big ones on this show. And we're going to discuss them together in terms of the build, the go home. And then, of course, we'll break them down one by one for predictions. It's going to be a unification match. Zarya, the North American champion, against Ren Sinclair, the speed champion, against Callie Armstrong, who does not hold a title, yet is in a unification match because she beat both of them. Then you have the NXT Championship, Kendall Gray defending against Kalani Jordan, and the NXT Championship, Tony D'Angelo defending against Cruz Montana, Grayson Waller, and Zilla Fatu, who's getting a title match and main event for his first match in WWE. D'Angelo backstage reminded that he's been crushing it at PLEs for years and he tried to put himself over by stating how he was the first to beat Obafemi in NXT, and his 3 challengers for this match all left more comfortable surroundings or opportunities because they wanted the NXT championship specifically. This was one of his better promos since winning the championship. The passion and confidence was there. We don't really see that when he's in the ring and he's not playing that former character. Maybe he just needs to do backstage and tape segments for a while until he finds his mojo again. Fatu got a promo package that was far better than his introductory promo last week. He showed off an Umaga pendant, saying his last name is a blessing and a curse, but he aims to be remembered more for his first name, Zilla. He acknowledged the Nepo baby, Nympho baby screw up from last week, saying he's a grown man who created his own path, and he continues to overcome the drama and controversy that follows him wherever he goes. Zilla said he got the title match not due to his family, but due to the impact he made upon his debut, and he plans to make a greater show when he wins the title in his first match. Night and day improvement from last week. Energetic, engaging, believable, the type of person who commands your attention. He even has some purposeful verbal tics and cues in his promo that if he keeps those up, they could become rather endearing to the audience. He'll go far if they do more of this and less of what we got last week. Lani got a promo package in which she bragged about skipping much of the hard work it takes to become a WWE superstar, saying she didn't have to worry about the indies, Evolve, or anything because her transition to the ring was immediate. It only took her 8 months, which proves that she's even more gifted than Oba and Lola. I mean, look, they're on the main roster well before you, Lani, and you've been in NXT for a while developing, but sure. Jordan called herself the most athletic woman in WWE history and pointed to winning the North American Championship and TNA Knockouts Championship on her first attempts, promising she will do the same Sunday. Well done by Lani. The logic was messy, but she's a heel, so whatever. There's no question she's one of the most gifted athletes to ever come out of the WWE Performance Center. But in reality, there's a reason she was held back when she reached NXT, and that is her character and personality. Luckily for Lani, WWE has been patient. They've allowed her to stay in developmental like they should have with Sol Ruca and others who were called up way too early. With Lani, it has only benefited her. We talked about this a year ago, 18 months ago, and how everything she has done from then until now, she's become more well-rounded and much better. We said the same thing about Braun Breaker and Roxanne Perez and others that have come before them. And yet, WWE, despite getting it right so many of those times, they got it so wrong with Sol and a couple others recently. Gray was warned later by the WWE trainer while serving as a valet for a random race car driver that she needs to be careful Sunday despite being cleared. He cautioned that she could suffer hearing loss or further balance issues if she does not protect herself, telling Kendall that she's playing with fire when she steps in the ring. This is what we were discussing last week. The realities of a busted eardrum and appropriate recovery timelines. It has not lined up with the way a doctor would treat a patient suffering from this, which leads one to believe, of course, that it will not only be a factor in their match, but potentially the factor in their match. Now, Gray opened the main event Heatwave Summit segment, and the women appearing before the men here told us they're probably not going to be the last match. Kendall put over her tremendous run in WWE, countering Lani's claim of being a standout, calling herself the benchmark, who beat a future Hall of Famer and took down Lola in the underground. Then she shaded Liv Morgan without saying her name, claiming that some in WWE are okay going 100 plus days without defending their titles. That's not her. She's wrestling hurt with a target on her back. There was also a Carmelo Hayes reference here as well, given Jordan's relationship with him. That was kind of fun. Lani answered, saying it will only take her one shot to gain the NXT championship and put Kendall on the bench. Ren chimed in, saying Ren QCC would have a huge championship celebration, but Zarya entered, taking exception to that, focused on gaining the speed title and erasing the rest of the negative memories that are hanging over her head from Sol Ruca in NXT. Callie then invaded the segment, reminding that she beat both of them in succession. We know, Callie, it was very stupid. Even more unexpected, Waller wearing a Nepo Oos hoodie after previously wearing a Nympho Baby hoodie, so he got both of them made and only showed one on television. Hysterical. Interrupted all of them, saying they were great to look at but hard to listen to. In the same breath of being misogynistic, he put them over as being the best thing in NXT until he returned. He assumed they will steal the show at Heatwave until he main events, conquers his demons, and becomes NXT champion. D'Angelo then entered confidently stating that Waller will disappoint like he always does. Montana then came through the crowd, acknowledging that NXT is indeed truly dysfunctional, saying he was not there to talk but throw hands. Suddenly, an 8-person intergender brawl erupted, with the women taking the high ground. Zarya F5'd Callie, Kendall laid out Lonnie with her feint back elbow, and then Zilla came in, ran between all of the women, leaped off the top rope and squashed the guys ringside. Gray, Sinclair, and Fat 2 held up the 4 titles that were left in the ring to end the show. I am not sure I can describe how much I loved this segment. It was convoluted, sure, but putting the women and men on an even playing field and having the women do the lion's share of the work in building Heatwave was super unique as a go-home. Going in order, Gray cut her best or second best promo in WWE, still scripted, more natural than usual. Lonnie did her heavy lifting in the prior package, while Zarya was finally able to kind of share her motivation about not just gaining more gold, but that specific speed title. Waller talking down to the women would normally be a demerit, but as I noted, he put them over in the same breath, and then he waxed poetic about the division when he returned last month. So it was coming more from a place of like individual confidence than looking down on another gender. D'Angelo had one of his best lines, but his delivery remains odd since dropping the Italian affect. Montana did well setting off the brawl, and Fatu, of course, served as the exclamation point. Basically, everyone had a role except for Armstrong, who was by far the least developed of the 8 people involved in this segment. Just a real cool, unique way to go home for a PLE, something NXT can do successfully that would unfortunately floor you to see the exact same type of segment on the main roster, even though it should be happening much more often. And now we are left to project and predict not 1 or 2, but 3 matches that we just gave you the go home to here in the Ultimate Preview. Let's start with the North American Championship. Zarya defending that title in a unification match, I should say, against Ren Sinclair, the Speed Champion, and Callie Armstrong, who again does not have a title, but is involved in a unification match. And the Silver King's main question coming in here: why do this? Did you just want Callie in this match to up her profile and resume? Are you moving Zarya up the card? Are you calling her up to the main roster? Are you giving Ren a huge win in Texas while protecting Zarya? That way you throw Callie in here. There's got to be a specific reason why Armstrong was strong-armed. You know what? I didn't even plan to do that. It's hysterical. Armstrong, strong-armed. That's great. Anyway, forced into this match. And I don't know what that specific reason is. It makes predicting this extremely difficult. It may be the toughest prediction on the entire card, even though that men's tag team North American title scenario is difficult as well. I'm going to go with my head, and my head says that Zarya walks out as the unified champion. She exercises her final Soul Ruka demon. Ren drops the title, sure, but she does it in a match with 2 behemoth women. You can't really look down on her for that. And Callie, I guess, gets her first major PLE moment being involved here, and maybe Zarya gets her win back and pins Callie. That would make a lot more sense, I think. You don't want to necessarily beat Ren in this scenario when she's dropping her title in a 3-way situation. But Ren, just like Chelsea Green, she can eat losses and it doesn't really matter because she's so beloved by the crowd and they're willing to accept, booking like that. My question is, though, what are they going to do with Sinclair if she drops this? Could they level her up potentially to be a challenger for the NXT Championship, perhaps, if Kendall Gray does not leave Heatwave as the title holder? Maybe. I could see that as a possibility. Do you just cool her off a little bit and then warm her back up to challenge for the North American Championship, whether Zarya wins or Callie wins? A lot of different options there. I'm glad Ren is getting a match in Texas, her home state. That's cool. It would be amazing if she walked out as the unified champion. I just find that to be the least likely outcome. I think Callie walking out as champion is probably second most likely. And of course, Zarya winning and taking that speed title and retiring it is the prediction. And I could not be happier that that stupid, dumb, idiotic speed championship is going away.
Thank you!
Now let's just figure out a way to get rid of the men's title as well. Moving over to the NXT Championship, Kendall Gray defending against Kalani Jordan. It's crystal clear that this busted eardrum equilibrium, gimmick that Kendall is running coming out of the NXT Underground match was created for this bout. They did it knowing that this Lonnie match was coming on the back end because Kendall has been booked incredibly strong since joining NXT and certainly since winning the NXT championship. So they need to figure out a way to justify, the way I see it, her losing the title. So let's get that out of the way. The prediction is that Kalani Jordan beats Kendall Gray, wins the NXT championship for the first time in her first ever challenge, which has been her entire storyline coming in, that she's asked and deserved these opportunities, but she's never been granted them despite winning the North American title and the TNA Knockouts title on her first opportunities. She's just been prevented from being NXT champion. And Kendall and even Lola Vice before refused to just give her a one-on-one match. She was involved in triple threats and other stuff. So you have Lonnie, who is super heelish, overconfident, but also incredibly talented, going in claiming, I'm finally getting my opportunity. This is what I've deserved, and I'm going to win on my first shot. And then you have Kendall, who's basically wrestling, despite being cleared, against the best wishes of her trainers and doctors, and just put on an absolute banger with Lola, already beat Natty to establish herself as a champion. There's really not much more you can ask for Gray in her first reign. So the way I see this going is as follows. Lonnie wins the title here. Kendall calms down for a couple of months. I don't know how long, maybe even until January, something like that. But ultimately, Gray wins the title back from Lonnie, goes on an extended run, like real extended, maybe a year or so. And then when that happens, Jordan gets called up to the main roster. Shawn Michaels did something extremely similar with Roxanne Perez. He did it, I want to say, with Trick Williams and Braun Breaker as well, where they have early title reigns, hold them for a short period of time, lose, redo themselves, work on their gimmicks, wrestle different people, whatever the case may be, come back a few months later, win the title, and then go on an extended run. I believe the booking is going to be exactly the same for Kendall Gray, because once she does drop the title that second time, you make her a two-time NXT champion. Once she drops it at that point, that's when you need to call her up to the main roster. You can't wait much longer than that unless you do something with the women's tag team division, but those titles have not come down to NXT in a long time. So I have Zarya, like I said earlier, becoming the unified champion, whatever you want to call that. Here, I have a title change. Lonnie walking out as the new NXT champion. That, of course, brings us to the expected main event of the show, which should not be, let me clarify this one more time, Kendall and Lonnie should be main eventing Heatwave. Instead, it most likely will be Tony D'Angelo defending the NXT title against Cruz Montana, Grayson Waller, and Zilla Fatu. Four-way match. You're looking at maybe a process of elimination type of deal here, just like we did earlier with AAA Ola de Calor. The one person in this match who I would be utterly shocked if they left Texas as champion is the champion, D'Angelo. He has completely floundered since being given the title. He has not, worked up to the level of being a main eventer in NXT, which is incredibly odd because in his prior Mafia gimmick, you could see him as a main eventer, main title holder. But ever since he's dropped that, he's really struggled to find a character. His promos have been incredibly weak. His matches have been strong. He's wrestled well against Naraku and people, but you just don't really look at him and say, yeah, this guy should be leading the brand. Meanwhile, you look at these other three guys contending, Montana, Waller, and Fatu, and you can make legitimate cases for each of them. So the first person we're going to eliminate is D'Angelo. Now here's the cases for the other three guys. Montana, he's coming in. He was the TNA champion. He's the most legitimate of these four guys, and you could see him running this brand for a decent period of time and getting a quick call up to the main roster like we have seen happen with other talents before. However, the main roster doesn't need him right now. He's just getting his feet wet in NXT, and it seems like it might be a little too much too soon to just rocket him right into that role. It's like when Joe Hendry got the NXT championship recently, and you're like, he doesn't really need this. Why are they doing it? They just wanted to put it on his resume before he got called up to the main roster. I don't think Montana's at that spot yet. That's where I stand with him. Waller coming in, shot out of a cannon, talking major shit. He's given a boost to the show. The ratings have been up. Like, there's a lot of energy in this men's division, specifically because of Waller. And yeah, he's operating as a heel. In fact, you could argue he's the only real heel in this match out of the four guys. But that also means that there's multiple babyface challengers for him. And that is far more interesting than a face being champion needing to fight other faces. But like I said, Waller has raised the rent in NXT significantly, and his storyline coming into the match is I am here to win this title and prove that this division needs to level itself up. And if he's going to be the benchmark of the division, not to steal Kendall's nickname, then he probably needs to be NXT champion. And then you have Zilla, who I think a lot of people are mixed about, since he's debuted. Certainly he has this weight around his neck coming into NXT from the indies. People were upset at the way he handled himself at some of these promotions. And obviously there is the legitimate Nepo baby comments that he's gotten a job in WWE simply because he's part of the Anawahi family, so on and so forth. And he is going to want to prove people wrong. He's motivated to do that. But I almost feel like it's more than enough for him to be getting a title match in his debut and not win the title in his debut. The only person top of mind who I can remember getting something similar was Ethan Page, and he lost. He won a couple months later, I want to say, in a 4-way match, ironically enough, but he did not win his debut title opportunity, which was his debut match. And I really don't feel like you want to tell your audience, hey, you waited 4 years for D'Angelo to win this title. You're really excited that we signed Mike Santana, even though he's Cruz Montana. Waller's back, and you guys are amped up about that. But you know what? Screw all three of those guys. We're going to give it to the neophyte who really does not deserve it and is super questionable whether he can even lead a company at this point. You'll remember Solo Sikoa when he was in NXT, and he was great in NXT as the street champion. He never won the NXT championship. In fact, he appeared on the main roster before he won the North American Championship, and then they made him relinquish that title. So the only reason to give Zilla the title is if he's showing up at like War Games or something, and they're just going to fast track him into this bloodline feud because they need another body. But I gotta believe that WWE is smart enough to see this guy and realize he is not even at Solo's level when he was in NXT, let alone ready for the main roster. Zilla needs a lot of work on promo, in ring. He needs to be developed. And one of the worst things that they can do is give him the top title immediately. This is not NXT 2.0 where they strapped up Braun Breaker before he was ready. If Zilla was in 2.0 and they gave him the strap, okay. I probably wouldn't. I'd complain about it, but I'd at least understand a little bit better. In this scenario, going up against these three other guys, he just should not be winning the strap. So going back to the process of elimination situation, I already took out D'Angelo. I'm going to eliminate Fatu. I hope that doesn't come back to bite me. That leaves me with Montana and Waller, and I would much rather see Montana chase the title than immediately emerge as champion after signing with this brand. Meanwhile, I don't want to see Waller chasing the title and cutting the same promo every week. I want him operating from higher ground, a position of strength, talking down to everyone else. That's where he's best. So I have Grayson Waller walking out of NXT Heatwave as the new NXT champion. So that wraps up our 6 match previews and predictions. It is time to go with a pre-show expectation grade for NXT Heatwave. I forgot to mention this earlier. We will give you post-show grades when we cover AAA Ola de Calor and NXT Heatwave in instant analysis fashion at some point on Sunday. Now, despite a couple reservations I have with like Callie Armstrong getting added to the unification match and the way this deal with Bourne and Heights might go, this is an extremely strong card. It's one of the best NXT PLE cards we've gotten in a while, especially because the men's division feels full again. And it just has not been like that for a long time. I prefer the women main eventing, as I said, but there's at least no argument that this men's title match is, I don't want to say equally deserving, but it's at least legitimate to be in the final spot. Whereas there's been other NXT PLEs recently where the men have main evented, and it's just been ridiculous. You roll your eyes, it's like, why? Because they're men. Why else are they in this spot? So that is how strong the card is, that even when it comes to the men's matches, you look at them and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Also, super cool, 3 men's matches, 3 women's matches. I love seeing that from NXT. It's also a 6-match card, and it's going to be real interesting to see the way this show operates. It's going to air once again on the CW broadcast. It's going to stream also on ESPN app through ESPN Unlimited, and it's going to stream, I want to say, internationally on Netflix as well. So I'm very curious to see the way it is produced, I guess is the best way to put it. We saw it previously with Great American Bash. Silver King was disappointed. I'm hoping they learn some lessons and do a better job here and don't run commercials during matches on a PLE, even though it happens to be on broadcast TV in the United States. Anyway, going back to my expectation grade, I kind of want to go exactly where I went with AAA. Like, I have a feeling this is going to be an A show, but I don't want to get ahead of my skis on it. So I'm going to say 93A. Like, this has a chance to probably be anywhere between like a 96 or an 86. Like, there's like a 10-point range for it. And I am much closer to believing it's going to be a Dynamite show, no pun intended, than the opposite. As long as they book it well and the match winners make sense, and of course everything goes according to plan, I think they have a real strong card with some great wrestlers that have the opportunity to put on a show with multiple title changes. Vintage is not here on the Ultimate Preview, but you know he always loves when stuff happens at PLEs and pay-per-views, and perhaps not as much on the AAA show, but on the NXT show, there could be as many as 4 title changes. And that's exciting. So that is your pre-show expectation grade for NXT Heatwave, 93A. Same as AAA Ola de Calor, 93A. And as I said, we will discuss every match on both cards, give you grades for the matches and grades for the shows in their totality this Sunday at some point in an NXT Heatwave, AAA Ola de Calor Instant Analysis podcast. Also on Sunday, we will have your AEW All in London Instant Analysis. That comes after our next show on Thursday, your AEW All in London Ultimate Preview. And rounding out our 5-episode week on Tuesday, we already have that WWE podcast in the feed waiting for your ear holes. On the way out, allow Silver King first to remind you to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show on YouTube. You can listen to the show. You can watch full-length video interviews. Hit the link on our profile. Join our free Slack channel. Talk about wrestling all week long, especially all day Sunday. It's going to be a lot of fun in there. All at Getting Overcast on social media. Please remember as well,
It's all about Defy.
head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Thank you all so much for lending me your earholes for this NXT Heatwave AAA Ola de Calor Ultimate Preview. Don't miss our Instant Analysis podcast this weekend. And then a full week of normal Getting Over content next week, right in this very spot, ahead of WWE Sunday night's main event. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.